Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 440 of the Stacey West podcast. I am your host, Ben, and tonight I'm joined by Charlie. How you doing, mate? You keeping all right?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Ben. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, it's all good. It's slightly less chaotic this week than it was last week for the midweek show. There's not quite as much stuff coming out of the bank this week, but it is. It's just as exciting because we've got a game. We've got a game this week, and it's on Thursday. I know lights, games under the lights at Sinsel Bank, always good fun. But it does feel a bit strange that it's on Thursday. Yeah, you got any bantery stories that we can get through before we crack on with news and whatnot?
Bantery stories. God, you sound so old, honestly. It's like you're trying to force a conversation with your grandkids. Like
in the early days, we were described as poacher and partridge, and I'm sticking to the fact that I was very much the partridge in that situation.
Well, there you go. Then proves the point. No real bantery stories, as apparently we're going to start using that term now. No, do you know what? It's been a good week. You say it's not been as chaotic, and I mean it hasn't, considering what last week was. But to be fair, we've got a game to talk about and preview. We've got a signing to talk about. We've got a load of questions as well from the patrons. And yeah, to be fair, it's been a good week for me as well. I've been just saying beforehand, been really getting into the swing of things. There's some exciting stuff on the horizon that hopefully people will see soon. Work's going all right as well. I started back at the gym actually Monday morning.
Bloody hell.
There's a gym in town called My Gym, because it's mine, that I've signed up to and started going to as of Monday morning or yesterday morning. So that was enjoying that. I've trying to get back into a fitness goal. I was talking to some of the people at work. A few of them are going to run the 10K. So I said, well, if you want anybody to walk around with you, then I'm more than happy to do that. I do offer that service, don't I, Ben? So yeah, I thought I'd really try and get myself fit, ready for a nice long 10K walk in April.
Fair enough. Well, no, I shan't be doing that again anytime soon. I had a conversation with a workmate, and they were like, "Oh, you doing all right? You're losing a few. You're getting back on the fitness train." I went, "Not really. No, I just need to become less of a fat slob." But
honestly, that was also my motivation. It was It was exactly those words that I said to myself whilst I tried to get myself up off the sofa after Christmas.
I'm sure the word slob was definitely used, because I had to very quickly think on my feet to use a different word other than the one that was bouncing around my head. But it's been all right. Like I say, it's just been we've got past the hump of getting past Christmas, New Year, all that stuff, and we're still trying to figure out if Happy New Year is an acceptable greeting for people, and I think on the 20th of January it absolutely isn't. So I am looking forward to a home game, even though, like I say, Thursday night just feels very, very strange to have a game. But I suppose that's what happens when TV deals come in, and you have to work your way around all of those, I guess.
That's what happens when we're doing good, is really what it is.
So we are going to be answering some questions a little bit later on. We've had a few in the Discord, one of which does involve the question around the TV deal and the rest of the season. It's going to be a bumpy one, I think. But given the news that Justin Abikwu went back to Coventry and then immediately straight out to QPR. There was a bit of chatter from Gaz and Emily on Sunday about what we were potentially going to be doing, and sure enough, we had the conversation in the group chat yesterday that we made a signing, which was a very quick turnaround. Alfie Lloyd has joined the club from QPR, and Michael Scabala alluded to it in his press conference a little bit earlier on. From the outside, feels a little bit like maybe a bit of musical chairs, kind of Abiku's gone back from us to Coventry to QPR. QPR have just gone, all right, well, Alfie can go out, so they've recalled him from Leyton Orient, and then he's come out back to us. It all seems to have moved very, very quickly, but we have a striker in the building to replace Justin Abiku, Charlie.
Isn't it exciting when we sign a striker? Like, forget the backdrop of it being a quick moving one where we were never actually going to do it beforehand and we've only done it because another striker got recalled. It's always exciting. I think it really kicked off the transfer window in a really weird way for me yesterday, because I didn't realise it was the 19th, 20th of January. And obviously, we've not made a sign. It still felt like we were in the first week of the transfer window. We were talking about starting to think about moves and all of that. We're well past halfway and getting towards the end. Like, we're discussing this week, a little sneak behind the curtain. We're discussing this week our deadline day plans on the Stacey West. And it's all crept up really quickly. But we've got our first signing. Second signing of the window. I'm calling it the first signing because I'm not including Josh Hounahan. He was a delayed summer window signing.
Oh, come on. You've got to include.
I know, but they did like a whole announcement video for him on the 2nd of January, a week after they'd already announced him anyway. Like, obviously the media team must have been a little bit quiet that week and needed something to do. But no. We have brought in Alfie Lloyd, obviously on loan from QPR. Exactly like you were saying, the Discord, especially yesterday as well, was rife with the speculation that there was some underhand dealings going on around a little player switcheroo and musical chairs. But obviously Michael kind of put to bed any of those sorts of rumours. Now that Justin Abiku has gone to QPR, we have brought in Alfie Lloyd, who did spend the first half of the season on loan at Leyton Orient. Didn't have a major impact, as I'm sure most people will have seen from the sort of baseline stats. He played less than 200 minutes of football in the league so far this season, but there have been quite a few, let's say quite a few, that's probably a little bit harsh, but there's been a couple of injury issues that he's had over the course of the first 6 months. So he'll be hoping that he can kind of put them to bed and really kick on. It was really interesting, some of the things that Michael was talking about in his press conference today, touching on Alfie Lloyd. So obviously the goal scoring record, like, Michael didn't hide away from that. He flat out said, like, he hasn't scored a goal. That's probably the thing that is kind of lacking from his game at the moment, is being able to put the ball in the back of the net on a regular occasion in the league. Obviously, if he was doing that, he probably wouldn't be coming on loan to us for the second half of the season, which is exactly fair. Like, you look at the striker that Leyton Orient had last season in Charlie Coleman, there's not a chance that we would have got him on loan for the second half of the season. There's a slight difference there. But one of the things he did say, and one of the things that the stats do actually back up a good bit, is the fact that he quite clearly gets himself about. His off-the-ball work rate is really strong. He gets himself up for plenty of duels. He has a good few shots as well when he does get the ball. He's also able to kind of dribble to a decent rate as well. He does win a couple of fouls, which you always want to see your striker getting up. It's one of the things that we really praise Freddie for doing, is being able to get up and win those fouls from defenders. Only thing is he does also seem to give away a few fouls. So again, Freddie Draper style. So obviously we'll want to make sure that those numbers, the fouls won is a little bit higher than the fouls committed. But overall, big, strong, got a bit of pace about him, can dribble with the ball, and can get himself about a bit. So I'm pretty happy with him as kind of a utility man going forward, to just try and hopefully help us get over the line in some sort of a capacity for the second half of the season. Yeah,
I think that's the thing, isn't it? The word utility there is probably the key. It's I agree with what Gaz said on Sunday's podcast about when we're currently without Ben House, and we're currently without James Collins. At the point at which that was going to be an issue, we said, I think the wording coming out from the club was, there were 3 players that could potentially fill that role in Freddie Draper, Rob Street and Justin Abikwu. That was when Frankie had obviously gone back. And I think there was I wouldn't be overly confident if we said Justin Abikwu was our starting number 9. And I think, what Gaz said on Sunday's pod about, this potentially being a good thing with Justin going back, to sort of force our hand a little bit, and then bringing in a striker who fits the mould of this. This feels to me more of a direct replacement for Frankie Okoronkwo than it does Justin Abikwu, because by all accounts, he can play anywhere across the front three. He can drop back into the 10 if he needs to as well. I think that was where he played against Cardiff for Orient in his last game. So, yeah, it feels like this is a signing of, we were starting to maybe get a little bit worried about depth. And this feels like one where we are going to be adding to that depth and giving ourselves options off the bench. I personally don't feel like Alfie Lloyd is going to be starting all of our games in the number 9 spot, but he will give us some really good options, hopefully, coming off the bench.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. I certainly don't see him sort of dropping into start immediately on Thursday night, for example. But yeah, he's an option going forward. And realistically, this window already, we've lost Justin Abikwu. Obviously, Frankie Okoronkwo went back as well. Obviously, with the current injury to Ben House, he's unavailable. Like, we are lacking, or we were at least lacking, depth going forward. I think the bench on Saturday showed that as well, when Abikwu wasn't on the bench, that we lacked that. And I think one of the points that you can kind of make here is as a different style of option on the bench, because we currently have Eric Ring, who we will always wax a little bit more lyrical about Eric Ring than some might. But one of the criticisms that's kind of been thrown at him so far, and something that the club have kind of noted in press conferences and interviews, etc., is that he probably just needs to work on his off-the-ball game a little bit more, which is something that the rest of the team realistically excel at so far this season, which is maybe one of the reasons that he's being kind of kept out of the starting 11. Now, the reason it seems like we've picked Alfie Lloyd over maybe some other options that the club will have undoubtedly been looking at is his off-the-ball work rate. Michael said as much in his press conference today. And again, like I said earlier, the stats do back that up. So we've now got potentially polar opposite options there. One who will be able to do all of the running, do all the hard yards off the ball in an Alfie Lloyd to come off the bench when we need that. And then we've got that kind of creative spark in Eric Ring that, okay, he might not give you as much off the ball as other players do, but the minute he gets the ball, you just feel like there could always be that kind of special spark there with that kind of technical flair and ability. And for the record, I'm not saying that Alfie Lloyd hasn't got that, but it seems like he's going to be more of a utility workman-like striker, and an option going forward. So, yeah, definitely kind of opposites on that. One other thing I will just say that does kind of back up the point with Alfie Lloyd, that he quite clearly gets himself into positions and is willing to kind of fight. When there's a big group of defenders in front of him, he'll be willing to fight to get the ball rather than wait for it to come to him like that. Is a lot of his shots, when you look at his shot map, a lot of his shots are actually coming from set pieces. Now that to me shows that that's a player who is willing to get stuck in and not kind of just wait for those counter-attack opportunities or playing on the shoulder or trying to beat the man, anything like that. But it is somebody like a Freddie Draper, like what Rob Street has shown himself to be recently in particular, like what Ben House is, where they're really getting stuck in and willing to kind of work to basically just guide the ball into the back of the net from a set piece. And look, if he's already doing that, Leyton Orient aren't exactly the best set piece takers in the world. Well, maybe not in the world, but we certainly are one of, if not the best.
We were in Europe last season, yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And look, I mean, Rangers quite clearly liked it enough to go ahead and steal Scott Fry off us. So if we can maybe get a few good balls into the area a little bit late on in games, he's the sort of player then, by all accounts, that is going to be willing to get stuck into, hopefully guide that ball into the back of the net. And that could be where we see him get a goal or two for us over the course of the second half of the season.
Yeah, no, I think it's certainly not a signing that is underwhelming. You know, I mean, we've used the word underwhelming before for people that have come in. I mean, this feels like a good move. I did see somebody say, well, why would we get the player that's Justin Abitku's replacing when we didn't necessarily think that Justin Abitku was brilliant? I just think you can find something to moan about in pretty much anything. And to me, the thing is, I didn't know a huge amount about Alfie Lloyd beforehand. I knew he was at Orient. I knew he'd not played that much. When you look into it, you go beyond the stat of, oh, he hasn't played. It's like, why hasn't he played? Oh, he's been injured. Okay, cool. And then he came back. I think he played 75 minutes on Saturday, and seemed to be, pretty decent for Orient against Cardiff. So, yeah, excited to see what he can do. But as I say, I don't necessarily think he's going to be forcing his way straight into the first 11. But he gives us that option, which is what I think we were probably desperately lacking on Saturday. So that's, to be honest with you, if we were just doing the big headlines from the week, that would probably be about it.
Okay,
we've got
feel like that. Good talking to
you. We've got. There are a couple of other bits. The other one, I think, obviously following on from the news about Ron Fowler last week. The club announced the following day that there's going to be a fans forum on the 19th of February, which they had to kind of announce after that because it was 28 days, I think, wasn't it, from that being publicly available to the fans forum. So that is going to be on the 19th of February. And then the other bit of news that came out yesterday is some news that we've tickets are on sale. You've got tickets on sale for Mansfield Town. And this is probably one that will get people's blood boiling if they were not aware already. Adult tickets for Mansfield Town are going to be £30 per person, with senior tickets being £26. Under 21s, or 18 to 20 rather, is 23, 14, 17 is 20 quid, and under 14 is 15 quid. Under 7s do go for free though. So, with your fetus-esque features, Charlie, you might be able to get in for free. I don't know. You
can get the senior one. All you need to go up and ask if they've got any bantery stories.
I'll give you that one. But I, to be fair to Mansfield, I do quite like the idea of the family ticket for 30 quid as well, which is one adult and one child ticket there for 30 quid. So kids essentially go free if they're going. But look, 30 quid feels a bit steep for Mansfield Town, doesn't it?
It does. Look, we can say that it's the state of football, and that's what they'll say, and that's exactly what the kind of fair enough response from the club is. But it is steep. It is just a bit annoying, isn't it, when it kind of comes out? These tickets will almost certainly sell very quickly. They're only open to gold members at the minute. Tomorrow goes to silver and bronze, and then general sale is Thursday. I would be very surprised if by the weekend there's actually that many tickets left. Ticket allocation of 1,700, but I would expect that to sell out. So for them to release those prices this late on in January, definitely a bit frustrating. But again, they also know they can because it will sell out. People will go. I'll be picking my ticket tomorrow. I'm very much looking forward to it. I've actually never been to Mansfield with Lincoln. I've been to Mansfield before to watch another match, but never with Lincoln. So I'm very much looking forward to it. But yeah, it is very frustrating with the prices as they are, especially when there's no 21 to 24 price range or anything like that.
You're an adult now, Charlie. Even though you are a fetus, you're an adult. You've got to pay the full whack for everything now, mate. That's how it works.
Awful. It's awful. Instead I pay the full
Can't
whack
even get your student tickets.
I am disabled.
All right, Brian Potter. I don't know if you've noticed. No. Yeah, look, it is a bit steep, but yeah, like you say, we'll take a follow in there. We'll sell it out. I think the last time I went to Mansfield, did we draw there a couple of seasons ago when Neil Erdley scored a peach of a free kick?
A bit more than a couple of seasons ago, but
yeah. Look, I'm trying to stay young in my mind. All right. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that was then. I think that was the last time I went to Mansfield. Yeah, it's not my favourite place to go in the world, but obviously it's not too far from us, so we'll always go if we get the chance. Right, and genuinely, I think that is probably the extent of the news this week coming out of the club. We do have, as Charlie mentioned a little bit earlier on, we do have a few plans in the works at the moment for our deadline day special, and a few more things in the pipeline as well that we aren't ready to talk about just yet. But if you do want to find out about that, get on the Patreon and get involved in the Patreon Discord, because we've had a couple of chats around that already. So those of you patrons that are listening, you're aware of one of the things already. Let's just say that much. So, right, we will do a few questions because, we'll preview the game in the second half as we always do. But we took some questions and we've got hopefully a few answers, and we'll do that for 10 minutes or so. So, right. First question that we had was, what do we need in terms of players to push us on to the promised land, Charlie? I'll let you answer that one first.
What do we need for all of our players to stay fit? It's like, that's the biggest request, if you like, that I have for us for the second half of the season. If I had a magic wand, that's what I would be using it on. Because I think if we do have a full squad that stays fit, we've got a really, really strong squad that plays exactly how we want it to play, and players that complement each other really well. Now, if we're talking about players to come in, I don't think we need anything. I don't think we're desperate for anything. If I was to be greedy, there are certain things I would like. I wouldn't mind another central midfield option. Whilst Tom Bayliss is currently out, if we see an injury to either Conor McGrandles or Ivan, we're in a little bit of bother, I would say. Because, okay, we could drop Jack Moylan into a central midfield role. We could, if Ben House was to come back, we could maybe drop him into that. We could maybe play a Dom Jeffries. But then we're not going to get the best out of those players in their natural positions. So I wouldn't really want to see that as much. So I wouldn't mind another central midfielder, especially, like I say, with Tom Bayliss still being out. Outside of that, potentially another centre half just to provide a little bit of extra cover, a right-sided centre half. Maybe another winger, but honestly, I don't really think we need one. I think we've got plenty of options there now. That genuinely, the answer is I don't know. Like, I am wanting the club to come out with transfer news, and I'm wanting to see rumours because it's a transfer window. We always do. But I genuinely don't think there's anything that I'm sat here like, why aren't you signing this caliber of player? Why aren't you signing this profile? I think anything we get now will just simply be an extra option, an extra body to help us get over the line when we do start playing a few Saturday, Tuesday game weeks, which are obviously going to be coming up. And especially with games being moved for TV, if we kind of get shafted a little bit and there's less time between games, then yeah, I would obviously definitely want to see a couple more players because the bench was light on Saturday. But yeah, it feels like we're sort of, I don't want anything because I also know that we've only got maybe 3-4 weeks until we've got half of the players that were currently injured back. Yeah. Like Scoob said today, you're looking at Ben House, he's currently on the grass. Tom Bayliss, I believe he said was not too far away. Adam Jackson, not too far away. I think he said House and Bayliss are on the grass. Yeah, close to coming back to squad training. Jacko is a little bit further away, and then Oscar Thorne is a little bit further away still. Exactly. So we've got those options that are close to coming back. And if we just end up saying, oh God, we're desperate, we need a centre-back, for example, we bring a centre-back in and then 6 weeks later, Adam Jackson's back and that centre-back doesn't see the light of day, then that's the last thing that anybody wants to see happen, and that's the last thing the club will probably want. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we bring in a couple of younger players that are project signings, if you like, that can just help complement the squad, like with Oscar Ford in the summer, for example. But outside of that, I don't think we need anything. And that's the thing. That's a really weird thing to say in a January transfer window as a Lincoln City fan. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I'm genuinely in the same boat. Like, I can't see anything at the moment where you look at the squad, you look at the players, you look at the first 11s that we've been putting out, you think we are desperate for X, Y, Z.
Like we're not desperate for a number 9. We do have the strength there. We're not desperate for anyone in midfield because I think, Michael said it in his pre-match last week. Conor McGrandles is probably one of the best midfielders in the league at the moment. I would probably agree with him. And then we've got Ivan Varfolomiev at the back. Alongside Conor McGrandles rather. He is looking. He seems to be getting better every week. I mean, he obviously was taken off on Saturday, but that was due to the fact that he got a yellow card and they didn't want to risk him going forward for for Thursday's game. It just feels to me like we're in a really good spot at the moment, and we just need that little bit of extra depth. So in terms of what we need in terms of players, I think we just need a couple more. We don't want to upset the apple cart. We don't want to get somebody in with a crap attitude. We want to be able to compete, and in order to compete, we just need people in the building that can fill in if they have to. I think that's probably where I'm at with it. Right, second question. Do you want to go for this one and I will answer?
Yes, let's do it. So, do we have any plans to do live watch-alongs? A la Benjamin Bloom. I have no idea who that is, and you had to research it to tell me.
Yeah, so I did have to Google. Benjamin Bloom is apparently a championship YouTuber who delves a little bit further down the pyramid as well. The short answer to this is no, because if we wanted to do it, it would likely be the way that we would want to do it would be to have all of us together, potentially watching and doing that, which then becomes an absolute technical nightmare. If we were to do it as one person, like Gaz is now media, he's media accredited, so he will be going to games under the banner of the Stacey West in the media bit, so he wouldn't be able to do that anyway. But yeah, it's not something that we're planning on doing. Yeah, we've got some plans, but that is not in the plans. So, yeah, that's the official answer on that one. Next question. With Sonny Bradley being so effective, do you think Riley Towler will be content with the thought of another year or two as a backup option? I will defer to you briefly there, Charlie.
I think it's harsh to use the words backup option because I don't think that's what he is right now. Does he maybe hope that he gets more minutes than what he currently gets? Yes, but I want every player to think like that. I want every player to be wanting to start game in, game out. Towler's really effective when we play in the 5-back system. And I think he knows that if we do play in that system, he is one of the first names on the team sheet for what he gives us there as that extra option. So bearing in mind, a lot of games we move between those two systems as well, and we might go to the 3-back, 5-back a little bit later on in a game, which is where you might see Riley Towler come on and get more minutes, and obviously sometimes we'll start from it, which means he'll get his starts. We've said loads of times that the game is no longer 11v11, it's 18 versus 18. In fact, half the time it feels like it's 25 versus 25 because you need that full squad of top quality players. Riley Towler is one of those. He's had ups and downs so far in terms of some of his games, but he's shown some real quality at times. So I don't think he'll be that displeased with the amount of minutes he's getting. He's also got an aging Sonny Bradley as the one who is playing that left centre-half role, which he would probably be hoping was his. And that's got to come into his mindset as well. As much as Sonny does feel like he's just unbreakable, he may not be at some point, and a slight injury, a knock or something like that. What he needs is, if that does happen and he comes in, he needs to play so good that he keeps Sonny Bradley out of the team. Now that is one hell of a high bar to aim for.
Yeah.
But that's what we want. We want those players to be aiming for those bars. We saw it a couple of seasons ago, like in particular, when we had Paudie O'Connor, Adam Jackson and Alex Mitchell kind of fighting for at least one or probably two of those centre-half positions. Whenever one of them got injured or suspended, they were out for almost 10 games in a row because the other two, whichever two it was of that rotation, were so good that you physically couldn't drop one to put another player back in. So we saw Jacko spend plenty of time out on the bench in those situations because of the fact that you simply couldn't drop Paudie or Alex. So Yeah, I obviously he will want to start more, but I definitely don't think that he'll be thinking about that going into a transfer window this summer, because I think he'll just be pleased with the amount of minutes that he is getting and seeing it as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Well, yeah, I think the other thing as well is there would have been. I don't think that he would have been brought to this club under false pretenses. The offer would have been, we want you at Lincoln City. Emily saying he might be back up to Bradley, but he still has the best hair. Oh, bless her. Yeah, I think him coming in, there would have been the wording of, you're going to be coming in, you will be playing sometimes left back, sometimes left centre back. We are signing Sonny Bradley. We will have these players in the squad. This will be your role. I don't think there would be any point during that conversation where they would have said, right, you're going to come to Lincoln City and you're going to start week in, week out. He would have known what what his role in the side would be, what his role in the squad would be. And the fact is, we've signed him on a 4-year deal, so he's here till 2029. So it's not like that's going to be his spot forever. If he feels that he's quote unquote better than being on the bench, and somebody comes in for him and he goes, then we'll be covered from a fee perspective. But the fact is that that's not how the club operate. The club don't dangle something in front of somebody and then go, oh yeah, by the way, that's that. You're not that's not happening. So yeah, I think content to be a backup is probably not the best way of describing where Riley Taylor's going to be, but I think he's going to be a solid option for us. And like you say, if we drop to a 5 at the back, he'll come on and do a job for us there. So, right, well, that is taking us half an hour. So we will go for an advert break there, and we will come back on the other side of it, and we'll answer a couple more questions and look ahead to Burton. So see you in a sec. Cool. Right, let's have a look. See who's on YouTube tonight. Andy's in. Devin Imp says, evening all. Hope we are well and excited for Thursday. We absolutely are.
Oh, I can't wait.
Ian says, good eevening all for a Tuesday version of the Stacey West. I cannot wait to be back at the bank on Thursday, mate. It's mad, isn't it? Steve says, flipping heck, another one. Yep. We're like DJ Khaled, except white. Ollie says, evening all. Jason's in, says evening everybody. Flossie's in, how we doing? Podcast mum Leslie's in, says evening all. Jason says finally catching one live. We are all good, Floss. Emily is in, says good evening everybody. Who else? Let's just go through. Andy Blackburn's in. Good evening, guys. Do we have any information on the new striker, and what's your thoughts? Any further news on the big screen going up at the bank? That's a good question, actually. The big screen is definitely happening, as has been confirmed. I don't think we've got anything firm on timescales yet.
No, nothing.
As soon as we know, we will pass the information on. Keith says evening lads and everyone watching. Gaz Nicholson's in, says happy Tuesday. Will we see anyone else come in? I think we will. Not straight away. We definitely won't have anybody in for Thursday. Jacob's in. How we doing, mate? You well? Carl is in. Says evening lads. Seen a few comments about Alfie Lloyd and his poor scoring record so far. Can't look too much into that. He's still young and a striker's more than just goals.
Correct.
100%.
Rob Street had an awful goal scoring record before he joined us, and okay, granted, if you actually just look at it right now, he's probably still got quite a poor goal scoring record outside of Doncaster, and yet he's great and does so much for us. So there you go.
100%. Dean Smith says we could have signed Messi and few would still moan. Of course. How would we pay his wages? That's ridiculous. Yeah. I know what you mean. Let's see. This is probably one we'll answer actually on in the second half. Keith says with the Burton game coming up, do you think JJ's been given a fair chance here? I honestly don't think he has. We'll discuss that later. John says evening all. Dave Tuplin says evening everybody. Gerard's in, says evening all. I'm going to skip completely over Stu's comments.
Good. I was very tempted to either put him in a timeout, which I saw was an option, which could be really useful now that I know that that's there.
Yeah. Margaret says evening, Charlie and Ben. And let's have a look. That's probably about it. So yeah, cool. Right. Right. We will come back in 3, 2, 1. There we go. Thank you for that advert. And thank you to everybody that is watching live. It is an absolute pleasure to be doing this in front of an audience that seems to be growing week in, week out. It's always good fun. Just a bit odd that today is Tuesday, not Wednesday. I'm sat there going, it's nearly the end of the week. It's not. It's the beginning of the week still. So, right. Let's come back to some questions. Charlie, are there any League One signings recently that you have made you think, oh, we could have really used him?
Again, this is like a really difficult one to answer. So I'm taking recent League One signing to mean a signing that's happened this window.
Yeah.
Again, because I've not really been like desperately saying I want a position, I want a certain profile of player, obviously, other than after Saturday, when Justin Abiku was recalled, obviously started to think, okay, we now need a striker. And yet and then it was like immediately sorted, so I didn't even really have time to think about that. There's been no real like signings where I have gone, damn, we've missed out on that. We should have been looking at that if we weren't already, sort of a thing. There's definitely a couple of signings that have been made where I think, actually, probably a decent player that I wouldn't mind having in the team. Bradford brought in Louis Sibley this window from Oxford on loan. I was actually quite surprised when that move happened, to be fair. And I certainly wouldn't mind him as an option in midfield. But again, I don't really think he gives us anything extra other than cover. And then the only other one that I did notice, to be fair, I'd actually missed had happened, so I was just checking through these earlier on, was Josh Dacus-Cogley has gone to Stockport from Bolton. He is the right back from Bolton who we had looked at just before he moved to Bolton, actually, when he was at Tranmere. Reports suggested anyway that Bolton effectively beat us to that transfer. Maybe wouldn't have minded him in as a right back option going forward. But again, he's 29. He went on a permanent to Stockport. It's not really the signing that we would have looked to have made this window. So the answer to the question is no, there's not really been any that I have genuinely said, oh, we really could have done with him. But there's definitely been a couple where I think, oh, that's a good player that you would never mind if your club signed, but it's also where do they actually fit him?
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, there is a very big, obvious QI answer that is hanging over everybody when this question gets asked. So we're definitely not going to go there. But looking through the list. No, it's not Paul Mullin. Looking through the list of the players that have moved into League One, there haven't been a huge amount so far, to be honest. There's been a few, but not, it's not been spilling over. They've not been throwing the money around as much as I thought they probably would have done, some of the bigger clubs. But in terms of the players that have come into the division or, moved between players in the division, teams in the division rather, you look at some of them. I mean, the one that kind of stood out to me a little bit was Ballymumba going to Huddersfield from Plymouth. You think that would have been a signing you look at, you go, probably out of our price range, but you think, oh, okay, yeah, that would have been all right. But we've just signed Josh Honohan. So that's, not needed there. And where was the other one?
Yeah, if we didn't have Adam Reach right now and we were still playing Riley Towler at left back, and Josh Honohan was still out injured, for example, then I would definitely agree that would be one where I kind of sat up and went, oh, that's a shame. But then again, he'll have moved to Huddersfield for about £1 million.
Yeah.
Just different kettle of fish, really, isn't it? It's just totally different price ranges that we would ever really look at for a 24-year-old left back.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one, maybe you think Victor Adebayo going to Mansfield, but then I don't know. Is that because it's somebody that plays up top that has moved and we think, oh, I know the name,
I think so. Honestly, I think that's very much I know that name, so that would be the one that I would look at. I think that's really about that. Like, for example, Randall Williams, he moved this window, recently anyway. He's moved to Reading. He was a free agent before. Now he's a player that the club have been very honest with the fact that we looked at signing a few years ago and missed out on. But again, at 28 as a wide player now, it's actually what would they really be what would he really be giving us? And the answer is not more than what Rico currently is giving us, for example.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Right, out of our remaining fixtures, which ones do you see us losing? Now, this is, it's a good little spin on the sort of prediction-y type question, and it is one of those because it was followed up in the Discord with, I can't see that many, and to be honest with you, kind of in the same boat.
So, for once in a while, I can see a lot. No, I mean, I can see us losing all of them, because it could happen. It won't, but there's no game in there where I think we are unbeatable because we wouldn't be in League One, and there's no side in this division that can go through the rest of the season without losing a game. In terms of which are the specifics, rather than to kind of just give that facetious answer of all of them, Cardiff away is going to be very, very tough. Cardiff at home, we're a different kettle of fish. Cardiff away, very difficult. Huddersfield away, it's going to depend on where they are at that stage of the season. If they've kind of had their new manager bounce and have then started to kind of regress from that a little bit back to where they currently are, then I could see Huddersfield away being an okay game. But if they are still kind of flying high, they've got momentum on their side and they're going through a similar run as to, what we did a couple of seasons back after January, then Huddersfield away will be very difficult. Stevenage away, never an easy place to go. Same as Reading away as well, actually. I don't think there's a home game here where I'm looking at it thinking we're going to lose to you. Stockport at home, again, depending on where they are in their season, will be difficult. And then finally, because it will almost certainly happen, last game of the season, away at Port Vale, we need something to get top two, let's say, hypothetically. And Port Vale are already mathematically relegated, then they definitely beat us 2-0 because that's just the way things go, isn't it? So yeah, there's definitely a few games that we could lose.
I think Bolton at home is going to be a tough game. I think that Bolton are. They feel like a club who just will be determined to get out of this division, and the away game felt like a difficult watch at times. It was well, they battered us, didn't they, for 90 minutes? We'd gone ahead and then they battered us for 90 minutes until they nicked one at the very end. But it feels to me like that could be the obvious. Away, I think you're 100% right. Cardiff away, Stevenage away, they are the kind of games that are very difficult. But let's not forget Thursday, Burton at home. It's not going to be an easy game. We will come to that shortly, but it's going to be a tricky one. And they've got a couple of players coming back from injury. It looks like they're a bit Jekyll and Hyde, but they're coming together at the minute. But yeah, there's not a huge amount of games that I look ahead and go, we're going to lose that game. But you can see any team beating any team in this division. We've said it all the way through the season, and we'll see what happens with that one. So right, we will probably cut off a couple of these because we will need to get onto the preview shortly. But he says the next one: do you think the possibility of quite a few remaining games being moved for Sky coverage will have an adverse impact on our run-in, Charlie?
Will it have an effect? Yes. Will it have an adverse effect compared to teams around us? Depends on whether or not we're going to have the squad depth to deal with it. But we very much expect to, as we've already said on the podcast. So honestly, no, not in terms of an adverse effect. I don't really think the team are going to mind too much if they're playing Saturday 3:00 or Saturday 12:30 or a Thursday night. Now, a Thursday night away at Cardiff, maybe not the most ideal for fans, but does it really make that much of a difference to the team? Maybe not. Like Michael said today in his press conference as well, they don't change their processes. Match day -1 remains the same. Match day -2 remains the same. No matter which day it is they're playing. These guys are used to playing Saturday, Tuesday, week in, week out. If it's Saturday, Thursday, so be it. We've got a Friday, Monday coming up for the Easter weekend. We could end up getting moved to the Saturday, Tuesday because of TV, or we could end up being moved to the Thursday, Sunday. Like, it doesn't really make that much of a difference as long as there's still a time period between games, which certainly seems like Sky are respecting so far.
Yeah, I think it could do. I think you're absolutely bang on when you say about the squad depth. Like, as long as we have bodies in to potentially, head off any fatigue or stress related stuff. In terms of the injuries, I think we should be all right. But yeah, it feels nice to have that problem in a way, because now we are, now we're second in the table. People are going to be wanting to watch. If people want to watch a game in League One, then the chances are they'll probably want to watch a team that's doing well there. Right, I thought this was quite a fun little question, kind of alluding to the rumours from the weekend. If you were a player or a staff member, would you take the quick pay rise and go to a less organised club, or stay with us and go as far as you can for 2 to 3 years? I will answer this one first, because obviously we all have red and white tinted glasses on. I think we'd all say, I'd stay with Lincoln for a few seasons, but football is a short career. If you're a player, it's massively, one errant tackle, that's it. Your career's done. But I think it depends what you're after. If you want to make as much money as you possibly can in the time you've got and move on, I think you'd take the payday any day of the week. If you want to prove yourself and be the best player that you can be, and get through things from a sporting perspective, I'd stay with a club that's doing the right things. Charlie?
Yeah, I think it really depends on who the player is, exactly as you're saying, and where they are in their career. If we're talking for us about a young player, a George Wickens, for example, who is still relatively young for a goalkeeper in particular at 24, and he gets that quick pay rise to a disorganized club in the Championship who are maybe on a bit of a downward spiral, then maybe be a little bit silly to take it. And you would think that he would say, okay, actually, no, I'm going to stay with Lincoln and hope to be in the Championship anyway within a couple of years. However, if you're a slightly older player, maybe nearing or in your prime, Conor McGrandle's 30 years old. If he gets an offer from a Championship club with a good pay rise, someone like him, it'd be pretty stupid to turn down, because why wouldn't you take that last big contract at a bigger club, which will be a pay rise, when realistically this could be your last chance to get that? So yeah, swings and roundabouts when it comes to players. When it comes to staff members, you would like to think that they would be smart enough to know that actually being in a well-run club means just as much. Like, if you're comparing two teams in the same division, for example, a Lincoln and a Huddersfield, and you
wonder why you're comparing those ones,
Charlie. Manager, maybe, just throwing it out there, then yeah, why would you want to go to a club who have shown disloyalty to managers before, who won't give them time to create a project and see through a project, and instead will want to chop and change because results immediately aren't working? And that's not what we do. We have said many a time that we will give all managers at least 3 transfer windows. After that, then you're questioned, but you will get 3 transfer windows, and that's a real rarity. So for a lot of kind of staff members like that, it would be stay with us and see how far you can go. For somebody like Scott Fry, for example, to use him as an example here, he has been with us for a good few years, has helped progress the team, has got the team to realistically the top of his field in the set piece world, and what he's kind of done with the set pieces. He's really been, he's really excelled in that. Then got an offer from a huge club in Rangers, and obviously has taken that one, which will definitely have come with a pay rise. But bearing in mind, he turned down a club, or we managed to keep him and convinced him to stay at Lincoln instead of going to another club only a few months before he ended up making the move to Rangers. So again, depends on the person and depends on the offer. But in terms of a less organised club, I think it's always harder to pry them away unless you go with unbelievable moon money.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the point from Richard here just says, given how the club's treated Lewis and Colo, I think players would choose to stay over a more hazardous short-term club. And that's exactly it. It was a point that I wanted to make around, the interview that Michael Scabala's done, this week, and the speculation around that. Why would anybody want to take? Why would anybody want to go from a place that has just given a contract to a striker who is reaching the end of his career? He's reached the end of his career. No disrespect to James Collins, but this is probably going to be where he finishes his career. He's got at the end of his contract in the summer. We've offered him an extension to that contract so that he doesn't need to worry about things going forward. It's the human side of things. Why would anybody want to go from a club that does that for somebody like James Collins and, looks after the human side to then go to a club that sacked a manager when they're sixth in the table? It's a no-brainer for me. But anyway, yeah. Right. Let's have a look. We'll skip one or two. I think this is a very quick one. Predicted 11 for Thursday. Mine is exactly the same as Saturday's.
Yes, I don't think I can see any changes coming in, to be honest. So yeah, I'm going to agree. I think I don't see us changing shape. I don't see us going to the 5-back. And it's not like we have that many other options in terms of players, in fairness. From the bench, the only thing that I would, potentially see changing is if there was anybody back from injuries, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case for Thursday night. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yep. And then finally, one name, Charlie. If we had no number 9 at all due to injuries, who could do a job there for a couple of weeks? One name.
The player who normally finds himself in the number 9 spot, Tendai Darikwa.
Yeah, so the fun answer is Tendai Darikwa, but I think Jack Moylan probably slotting in there and would do that. So cool. Right, that is the questions. I say if you do want to get involved and ask us a couple of questions, the best way to do that is to get involved in the Patreon, get on the Discord, chuck them in the Patreon Discord, the questions and answers room channel, that's the word I'm looking for, in there, and we'll get them answered on the podcast. Right, so as we've said, we've got a game on Thursday night which feels bizarre. Burton Albion. It's one of those games that always feels a little bit dicey. Currently sat 19th in the table. They came here last year, and I think it was it around this? Was it around February last year? They came here and
around this time, actually,
yeah, and won with essentially the last kick of the game from Charlie Webster, and sent us all home quite annoyed. Thankfully, this time round, thankfully for us, there is no Charlie Webster this time. He is currently out of the squad with an injury, but I'm genuinely surprised that he's still at Burton as a, just as a quick aside. I think he's far too good to be playing there. But your thoughts on Burton, Charlie? Obviously, on paper, this is one of those that you look at and go, "Oh, it's an easy win for Lincoln," but we know that that's not going to be the case. They beat Huddersfield at the weekend 3-1. They have beaten Cardiff away this season. They've got a decent result at Stevenage this season when Stevenage were flying, but they do seem to be a bit hot and cold, don't they?
They're such a weird side. Like, you look at them and you think they've not got that much quality, and yet they sometimes, quite regularly, to be fair, manage to pull out these results that make everybody sit up and think, "Oh, damn, Burton must be good." Overall, they're not that good. As I just said, they've not got that much quality, but they are certainly able to get a result against top sides, and they have done a few times this season. Obviously, they did beat Huddersfield at the weekend. They won away at Cardiff a little bit earlier on in the season. They've won at home to Bolton. They've won away at Bradford as well, another one of the teams up here with us. They've beaten Blackpool as well in there. So, I mean, you can look at them a little bit like you could have looked at us a few seasons back, where maybe they struggled to beat the teams around them, but are able to beat some of the top teams, and that is certainly a worrying prospect going into Thursday's match, not Saturday's match, Thursday's match. One of the other stats that honestly I didn't believe was true until I did research it myself earlier on. We have played Burton 11 times recently, so I believe that's all since COVID. We've played them 11 times. The away side have won 10 of those matches, with the other game being won by the home side, which was when they beat us 3-0 at their place on Boxing Day under Mark Kennedy.
Wow.
Yeah, it is insane, the kind of swing that is happening with whenever we play head-to-head. So definitely a little bit concerned with that one in mind. Now, there's not been a draw between us for a while as well. That's been, I think it was back in 2019, the last time we drew against Burton. So when you look at all of those stats, it just points to the fact that they are going to beat us on Thursday night, which does concern me. However, we have come off a good game against Luton. A tiring match, yes, but a good match where we showed some real fight. We looked down and out at one point in the second half, even though it was only 2-2. And yet then we were the ones to rally to put on a load of pressure on them a little bit later on in the game. The concern is that this ends up being a little bit like Exeter early on in the season, where we do kind of hit them with a bit of a barrage. There's going to be the highest home attendance of the season for this match as well. Obviously, huge credit to the club, to be fair, for providing a great ticket offer for this one as well. So the crowd are going to be behind us. I don't honestly see us losing this one. And I'm going against all of those stats. And that may just be full rose tinted spectacles, but we've played them twice already this season. We've beaten them twice already this season, and we are better than we were then. And I don't think they are. Not really. They can pick up those freak results, but they were doing that at the start of the season. They're doing that now, but they're not able to consistently perform. And I think that is hopefully what we're going to be able to kind of exploit from them, and hopefully take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, so I we've done the preview for the game. As always, Dave Fletcher, BBC Radio Derby, great value to have on the preview. If you've not seen it, get on that, because Dave knows Burton inside and out. You know, it's nice to actually do kind of, a preview with somebody that isn't a dyed-in-the-wool fan. You know, Dave is not a Burton Albion fan. He covers Burton Albion, and he knows it inside and out. And I think he's got a little bit of objectivity around it all. But he's been quite, he's quite clear with how Burton are doing some things well and some things not so well at the moment. The thing that struck me was that that they get 3 players back from an injury when they already have quite a small squad, and those 3 players come back, they play really well, and they win 3-1. I mean, admittedly, Huddersfield were poor in that game, but you're not just going to drub them 3-1 with just them being poor. So Burton were, they were good for the win by all accounts. They're not going to be a possession-based side. I think when we beat them at their place earlier on in the season, we gave them the ball, and I don't think they really knew what to do with it. And it sounds like not a huge amount has changed since then. So it all depends on how we approach that. I can only really see us taking all 3 points from this one. Like you say, that there's so many mitigating factors around this, or so many extra factors, I should say, around this one, that we're just going to be in a really good spot. And I think we should be good for it. The players that came back, got Udoka Godwin Malif. He's back now at right back, I think it is. Seb Revan came off the bench at the weekend, and Jake Beasley, who was started at the weekend, scored a peach of a goal as well against Huddersfield. So, they're getting people back in, they're getting players back, and it looks like they're starting to put things together a little bit. it's just that word that you said earlier, and it's that word that we've had this season. It's the consistency of doing it, and they've not been able to put that together so far. So yeah, it's probably not going to be an easy game and all the rest of it, but I think we've got enough quality to come through it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you know what? I would probably be more concerned about them if they hadn't beaten Huddersfield at the weekend.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because then I'd be kind of sat here like it's coming, like their shock result of the month, like you normally get from Burton. It's coming, but they've got that out of the way now. You know, they've beaten Huddersfield. They don't need to care about little old Lincoln. You know, we wouldn't be a shock result.
They can go back to being crap.
Yeah, literally. So they don't need, you know, they have lacked that consistency. They've lacked any kind of quality when they've had the ball. Like you said, they have been good without the ball at times, but they've not really been good when they have had to take the game to their opposition. Now, we're at home. I expect this to be a game where we see one of our highest percentages of possession over the course of the whole season. But again, we're not going to blow them away with 70% possession like a Huddersfield might have done, like a Cardiff might have done. It's going to be 50-50 at absolute max. And we're probably just going to want to capitalise when they get a little bit sloppy. We'll let them have the ball, but they'll have to have it at the back. They'll have to have it in midfield when there's no real passages of play forward. And we just need to make sure that we close them down. I think we've obviously had a couple of defensive errors come in recently. You know, the set piece goal, for example, against Luton that we conceded, the two guys at the back post, like that's not very Lincoln-esque, is it, to let them have that opportunity? I can't see a situation like that happening again. And then, you know, even the other goal against Luton, yes, it was a great strike, but could argue maybe had a little bit too much space in midfield as well. Definitely don't think Burton are going to be allowed that sort of space. We will be hard on them. We will be pressing hard, and hopefully they will be the ones that are sloppy when they have the ball, and then we can capitalise on that. I'm not saying, therefore, that it will just be a rout and we'll go and win 4-5-0, but I don't see them getting a goal against us. I really hope I'm right.
Yeah, I think as well, I think a clean sheet is probably going to be key for confidence as well. You know,
we've not had one in a while.
No, and that's the thing. You know, I think George Wickens took a little bit of flack on Saturday. I think the criticism for that second goal was unfair. I just think it was an amazing strike on Saturday for Luton.
Yeah, no, it was. It absolutely was.
Yeah, you know, and I think any criticism for that one felt harsh to me. The first one, yeah, defensively, questions can be asked, but I if we'd scored that goal, if we'd scored the first goal that Luton scored on Saturday, we would be praising the move, because they doubled up, or they tripled up actually, on a man on the back post, you know, and that's what did it for him. And you know, it's just a clever move. But right. So, quick prediction, Charlie.
I'm gonna stick with, spoiler alert, what I've gone for on the real short, whatever those short form things are called. I'm gonna go with a 2-0 home victory to kind of break that away team winning curse.
See, I have also thought to myself it's gonna be a 2-0 win on.
I think Gaz said the same as well. Everybody's. All I'm saying is I went first, so everyone's copying me.
So there we go. Right. Well, we will wrap up with just a bit of a cap on some of the rumours that were doing the rounds. Obviously, Gary and Emily spoke about it in a bit of detail on Sunday's podcast, but in today's pre-match press conference, Michael Skubala was asked about Huddersfield Town, and fair play, I think, to the interviewer. I think that they've changed the interview for the pre-match press conference today, and it was quite interesting. It felt a bit different today, but Michael was asked pretty much point blank, to be honest. You know, did Huddersfield come knocking, basically? And Michael, his response, I've written it out because I think it's a decent enough response. He initially kind of said, well, you know, it's always flattering or whatever if something happens, but you know, it's not nice to see Lee Grant losing his job. But then he said, I've been here a few years now, and we're building something really special. I'm fortunate to be with a club that supports me. It's interesting with players and staff. When teams are doing well, people want to poach them, but we're committed here. I'm committed here, and there's no better place to be than where we are right now. I love the fans, I love the club, and I love the players. Now, some people would probably say that feels a bit like manager fluff speak, but it just sounded genuine, didn't it?
Don't take this the wrong way, Ben, but when you said it there, it did sound like manager fluff. But when you listen to the no. But I'm saying that as in if any other manager had come out and said those words, you would start to think, oh yeah, all right, yeah, you're gone at the next opportunity. They obviously just didn't want you. They didn't want to pay your release clause of your contract or whatever, But when he said it, it was clear with this sincerity of, I'm building a project. We're building a project. I've been given time. I will give my time back and see this project through. Now, if we get to the championship, it's a different story because it's also like, well, okay, what's that project to get to the championship and all that? That's fine. But for now, he's clear. He's got it. He's had a project. He's had time to work on it, and he loves his time here. And he doesn't want to see it end, especially not mid-season. And I feel like it would take a lot for Michael Skubala to leave mid-season like this, especially at sort of this stage of the season. I genuinely think even next year, if we were down to, let's say we did get promoted and then we were down towards the bottom in a relegation fight, and there was still a chance in like February, and he got approached by a mid-table championship side, I think it'd be hard for him to even leave then and leave mid-season because he quite clearly cares about the players, the staff, everybody in and around the football club. And that's not just him saying it from a manager's point of view and just from that kind of typical, let me use this phrase book, like one of those tourists in like an old film when they're all reading their little tour guide book.
You hear that, people, in an old film.
Yeah, I know.
Old film.
But, anyway. So I can't see him just upping and leaving because it's full of sincerity the way that he was talking about it. What a guy.
Yeah, no, it was it was nice to hear that, to be honest. And I think, it's the sincerity and the genuine way that he's approached the topic. I think it's just been really good of him to do it. I think, you get certain managers that you would bring in mid-season, typically the likes of, Steve Evans, Neil Warnock, in traditionally you've got those kind of managers, further up the chain, you've got Big Sam, that was it. But Michael Skubala feels like the kind of manager that you would bring in at the start of a big project, at the start of a, long-term planning session. And that's exactly what we did. And we're seeing the benefits of it now. So yeah, long may it continue. Thankfully, Huddersfield have not taken Michael Skubala. But right, I think that's probably going to do us for now. I believe the next podcast is going to be Sunday again. I'm not sure. Obviously, with the game being on Thursday, it's thrown us right off. No idea what's happening.
I think it will have to be Sunday by availability, to be fair. Yeah,
that's a fair point. Yeah, that is a very fair point.
Yeah.
Given, yes, I shall say no more. Sunday will probably be the next podcast. However, we are going to leave you now. We'll see you at the bank on Thursday. And of course, up the Imps.
Up the Imps.